Okay, so we're live. Good morning, everybody. Good evening. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Paul here, obviously, and I'm very privileged and honoured to be doing the long planned conversation with Louie Shelton, American session guitar player. What I want to say before we start is, if you haven't heard Louie Shelton play the guitar, the only excuse for that is that you must have been on a different planet, because he's on so many records, from the Monkees to the Carpenters to Art Garfunkel to Barbara Streisand. It's insane. There's so much stuff Louie's done, and I was connected to Louie through, I believe, his nephew in the United States, and so we've been having some online conversations, and so this is the first time I've ever met Louie. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to introduce you to Mr. Louie Shelton. So, hello, Louie. Good evening there in Australia. How are you doing?
And good morning to you there in England. And yes, good evening to everyone here in Australia.
Great.
And
Great.
I've admired your show for a long time, ever since my nephew, he told me about you. And of course, I logged on and I've enjoyed your wonderful playing now for months and months.
Thank you. It's a great privilege. It's a
Learned a
great honor.
lot. Yes.
That's great. Well, given your track record, Louis, that's a great compliment, and I appreciate it vastly, enormously. If we look at Louie Shelton's discography on his website, it's mind-boggling. From, as I say, Barbara Streisand, the Carpenters, Sammy Davis Jr. is on there. It's just it's mind-boggling. So, Louis, I don't want to ask you like the obvious questions, what's your favorite guitar, or I want to basically have a conversation with you about music and how you got involved. So, like, first of all, these sessions that you did, were you like chasing that work, or did you just find yourself in a position where it came to you? Was it a natural event, or were you, like nowadays it's a career pursuit for so many people? So how did you find yourself in that position where you were getting the call?
Well, I'd been playing for many years. I started out as a hillbilly in Arkansas, the backwoods of Arkansas, and got my first guitar when I was 9. Started playing right away, was playing professionally by 12. My first idol was Chet Atkins, and then I got Jimmy Bryant records and the Flat Pickers, and then later Reggie Young, the famous Nashville session player, was a friend of mine. We were friends in Little Rock when I was 16, and he told me about Wes Montgomery and Johnny Smith and these other great jazz players. So I dabbled in jazz, tried to learn a lot of stuff off of their records, but most of my work was commercial work in the clubs. I left Arkansas in '58. I'd been playing in the clubs there for a few years. For the next 4 years, I was like most musicians, playing 6 nights a week in a club and developing my chops. And I was interested in learning. So even if I'm playing, the top 40 in the clubs at night, I go home and I'm listening to Kenny Burrell and all of these other guys. So I ended up being a versatile guitar player in that but as far as the session scene, after having spent quite a few years in clubs and all that, LA was a very hard scene to crack.
Right.
And when I went to LA in '63, I was just as good a player as I was after a couple of years when I finally got my foot in the door. And they don't welcome you there as a session player, because they've got a clique of guys there that they're getting to work every day.
Yeah.
The producers have their favorite guys. They don't want to try anyone new.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing demos with Boyce and Hart who were just a couple of young writers from screen gyms. We were getting $30 a song. And luckily, they got the account to write the songs for the Monkees.
Wow.
And being one of their favorite musicians, I was actually working in Las Vegas at the time, and they showed up at the casino and said, "We just got a chance to do this great TV show, and we want you to come be our guitar player."
Mm.
So I did that. I quit Las Vegas, went to LA, and we cut Last Train to Clarksville, and it became a #1 hit. So that got everyone's attention in LA. That was really my foot in the door.
Amazing.
It was overnight after that because
Right.
all of the producers said, "Who played guitar on that?"
Hmm.
Because no one was doing that kind of stuff. The
Yeah.
Tommy Tedesco's and all of those jazz guys, they were not playing the commercial kind of stuff. They were mainly just playing rhythm.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Glenn Campbell Glenn Campbell was a session player. He was my old friend. We were friends before he went out and became a superstar.
Yeah.
And he was the #1 session player until he got his hit record and became, a big recording artist.
Hmm.
So he left a kind of a vacancy there for the kind of guitar player that I was and he was. We grew up playing commercial music, playing the top 40,
Hmm.
listening to whoever came out, whether it was, the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or
Hmm.
whoever it was. Uh, you know, I, I learned from all of them. If I
Yeah.
heard, I mean, I saw Cream when they first came over to the States and played the Santa Monica Civic,
Right.
and that was a real eye opener for me. The way Eric married blues and rock and all of that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
I learned from all of those guys. I
Hmm.
mean, incredible Jeff Beck. I still watch him on YouTube and
Yeah.
just sit there with my chin on the floor, what
Yeah.
he's doing.
It's
But yeah,
amazing.
I lucked out with going to Clarksville, and that was my foot in the door.
And you wrote that riff, so you came up with that riff.
I just like that. I mean, as soon as he
Yeah.
said, "We want something that's a little bit like a Beatles tune, like a Ticket to Ride or something,"
Yeah.
and it just dropped right out of the sky. I mean, the
Yeah.
next second I was playing that riff for him, they said, "It's perfect."
Yeah.
They didn't even have
Brilliant.
the song written yet.
Yeah.
They wrote the song after that, and if that happened today, I would have gotten writer's credit. Because if you take that lick away from the song, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's half the song, really.
That's right.
But
That's
back
right.
then, I was just happy to be making $200 for a session.
Hmm. Hmm.
After
Hmm.
working in the clubs where you only made $200 a week, most of
Yeah.
it back in the '60s.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was I'm happy with that.
It's amazing. I mean, it's everybody to play on these records that everybody knows. It's like I said in the introduction, Louis. I mean, I don't think if anybody says, "Oh, I haven't heard Louis play the guitar," I mean, where would you have been to have not heard Lionel Richie or the Monkees or or all of these records? So that's brilliant. You also work with. I know you've worked with the Carpenters, Louis. So.
Hmm.
I mean, I absolutely adore the music of the Carpenters, and obviously Karen Carpenter was just like born with the voice of an angel, and I think Richard's vocal arrangements and harmonies are just exquisitely rich and beautiful. So, would you talk to us a little bit about the Carpenters and what you did there?
Well, first of all, Joe Osborne, the famous bass player, did all of their stuff.
Mm,
He also did all the Simon and Garfunkel, many, many, great records.
mm-hmm,
At that time, he was mainly doing the Ricky Nelson show,
right.
and Glenn Campbell had introduced me to Joe.
Mm-hmm,
And Joe invited me to go over to Richard and Karen's house. They had a little recording set up in their garage, and we did some demos, which I can't help but think later got them their record deal on A&M.
right.
Um, so bit of time passed, and here I get a call to go actually play on their sessions.
Wow.
And it's a time when most of the people that I was recording with in LA, in Hollywood, there were the hippies from up in Laurel Canyon, like the David Crosbys, Crosby, Stills, Joni Mitchell, all of
Mm.
those people that lived up in the canyon.
Mm.
And I get in there, and here's Richard from suburbia,
Yeah.
who looks like a tax accountant or something,
Yeah.
and just absolutely both of them just the sweetest people you could ever work with.
Yeah.
Um, Karen would give us a guide vocal. She'd be over behind the curtain there, uh, giving us a guide vocal that could have been the master vocal on any
Right.
record that we ever ran down.
Right.
And we recorded all that stuff in Studio B at A&M, where Carole King did her incredible record,
Right.
and a lot of other people.
Yes.
It was a great studio.
Mm.
Um, it was always a very, very relaxed session, just me, Hal Blaine, Joe Osborne,
Mm-hmm.
Richard, and Karen,
Mm-hmm.
with a very nice producer. He wasn't one of these screamers over the talkback all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Richard he just had us a basic chord chart,
Yeah.
and it was just an easy, fun going session.
Yeah.
And they just had great songs.
Which songs did you
We've
play
only
on?
just begun.
Or what? So
I
you
did.
played on
We've
that?
only just begun.
Wow.
Yeah, Top of the World,
Wow.
Close to You. The hits that I know I played on those hits, but I played on many other songs. I don't remember the name of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
a lot of times we just do album cuts.
Yeah.
But those were the three hits I played on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And when you did these big, like obviously the Carpenters have got strings and they've got, it's a big thing. So when you were in those situations, did you have much time to rehearse in the whole situation, or did you literally just have to sit down and read it and get it right on the spot?
Oh, we usually did three songs comfortably in 3 hours.
Right.
They're simple songs. You could run them down
Right.
2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
and you're almost ready to record them.
Yeah.
And like most of the recording there, we would just record the basic track.
Right.
The strings would be another section at a different time,
Right.
and all that sort of stuff. So
Right. Right.
we just going in for the basic tracks most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Another
I
solo.
think that's pretty common.
Right, right. And I know that we just talked briefly before we went live about the solo that you played on Hello for Lionel Richie. And as I said, that for me is a standout solo. It's like, I've always listened to that solo and thought, whoever played that solo knows how to play the guitar without a shadow of a doubt. It's just spot on. So could you tell us, was that a first take, or did you have a run through on that, or was it totally spontaneous?
It's worse than that.
Right.
I had been in Australia for 5 weeks, and I went back to California, and someone said, Lionel Richie's trying to get in touch with you. He wants you to do a solo on his record. And so I called his office, and they said, yeah, we've got a cassette for you. When Lionel cut the track, he hummed this solo that he wants the guitar to play. And he's had 3 other guys hit, and he's not happy with it.
Right.
And his producer said, I know the guy that can do it if we can find him.
Right.
James Carmichael was his producer, who used to do arrangements when I was working over at Motown. So I get the cassette, and I learned this horrible thing that he hummed on the demo. And I go into the studio there at Ocean Way, set up my amp, and it's just me and the engineer. Lionel was always late. And so we set up my amp, and I record this thing that Lionel had hummed. And I just thought it didn't translate to the guitar at all. So I asked the engineer, I said, do you have another track, and I'll give you an alternate, another option.
Mm-hmm.
And he keyed up another track and rolled the tape, and what you hear on the record is what I played the very first time.
Wow.
And as I'm getting to the end of it, Lionel walks in and he said, "I don't know what I heard coming down the hall, but it sounds like a hit record to me." And I started to explain, well, it's not the thing that you hummed. And he said, "Oh no," he says, "that's not what I wanted." He said, "It's the next thing you come up with is what I wanted."
Right.
Just put me on a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that was the one take, just right off the top of my head, just playing to the chord changes.
And that's a 335. Is it on a Gibson 335?
I actually played that on a Strat.
Really? Wow. Sounds like it's wow.
On
That's
a
amazing.
Strat,
Yeah.
yeah. But you can play. You get great sounds on a Tele or a
Yeah.
Strat. I
Yeah.
mean, get better jazz sounds on a Tele.
Yeah.
But on that one, well, uh, it didn't have Strat pickups, so
Hmm.
that helped get a nice. Everybody thought it was an acoustic guitar, but it was a Strat.
Yeah. Yeah. I always because I've played Strats since I was like a teenager, and I would pick up a Telecaster or I would pick up a Les Paul, and I could never, for a long time, I couldn't get anything out of it, the penny dropped. I got a Telecaster, and the penny dropped that you have to approach a guitar as that guitar. So if I try to play a Les Paul like a Strat, it's not going to do. It's not going to respond, and I realised
No.
that it was listening to Danny Gatton and Roy Buchanan and Jeff Beck that you have to approach a Telecaster
Hmm.
as a Telecaster kind of thing, but
Yeah.
of all of the guys that you work with, Louis, or all of the producers or composers, is there one guy who you would? I mean, they're obviously great. I mean, Richard Carpenter, Lionel Richie, they're all amazing people. Is there one guy or girl who you would say was like supreme that you hold in your memory as like that was the absolute ultimate talent that you met?
Well, one of the most talented people I've worked with was Jimmy Seals from Seals and Crofts as
Right,
a writer.
right.
He was in the Champs for many years playing sax. He could play sax like John Coltrane.
Wow,
The
right.
best, the best. Yeah, no one would ever know that, but he
Hmm.
played sax in the Champs for all of those years when the Champs was on the road,
Mm.
and then he became a very good writer. Um, Lionel was one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. I would say there were a lot of them,
Hmm.
but the memories that are fun for me was my Motown sessions.
Right.
Uh, we had Gene Page and James Carmichael as arrangers most of the time.
Mm.
And having been a fan of the Motown sound and all of that, when they moved from Detroit to LA and I was asked to come over and play on that stuff,
Hmm.
it had a special place for me
Right.
because every time you ran their chart down, it sounded like Motown,
Right. Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And it was just so together and rhythmic. But one of the first sessions I did for him was "I Want You Back" for the Monkees. I mean,
Right.
for the Jackson Five.
Right.
I did their first four number one hits in their first two albums,
Hmm.
and me and David T. Walker and Don Peake sat there and worked out those guitar parts
Right.
and
Right.
the bass player. And when I listen to that record today, it's just such a great arrangement,
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
today.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's one of the favorite records that I played on was "I Want You Back."
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that oh
so,
that up down 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 down. I mean, it's so up. It's so pop. It's exactly
yeah,
what pop music's supposed to be. It's to lift your mood and make you feel good. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
it was a
So
great first record for them. Just like "Last Train to Clarksville" was a great first record for the Monkees. But a lot of those things that I did uh, they were the first record for people. We didn't
Mm.
even know if it was going to be a hit or if they were going to be a hit because we
Wow.
were
Yeah.
doing so many sessions,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not all of them were hits.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was there for the beginning of a lot of people's career,
Mm.
even the Partridge Family.
Mm-hmm.
I was there on their very first sessions, and of course they had the TV show, so it was almost a guarantee that they would
Mm-hmm.
sell some records.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but at one time, I was doing the first Bill Cosby show, which Quincy Jones was the arranger
Mm.
for doing the little music to his comedy show.
Yeah.
I was doing that one and the Monkees and the Partridge Family and the Glenn Campbell TV show
Mm.
at the same time, plus a
Right.
lot of the record dates in between. It was a
Wow.
busy time,
Mm.
and there was such great new artists coming out. We were doing Neil Diamond's first recordings, and he was just this shy guy that could hardly play three chords on the guitar. I had to tune his guitar for him.
Wow. Wow.
Uh, so it was a good time to have gotten into the session scene in LA
Oh, I tell you,
and work with so many people.
Louis, it's gold. These stories are gold. So basically, you meet Michael Jackson, and he's like, I don't know how old was he then? About 8 or 9 or 10, 11?
He was 11 when we did
11.
that first record.
And all of those years later, you would see him doing like Thriller and Beat It and stuff like that. I mean, you could have never envisaged back then when you first met him on those sessions that he was basically going to be as big as Elvis Presley, if not bigger.
And those were great records.
Yeah.
There was a new crew of session musicians there,
Mm-hmm.
Greg Gaines and all of those guys.
Yeah.
They made some great records there with Quincy for
Yeah. Yeah.
Michael. I
Yeah.
listened to those records. I had them on today.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those records
Yeah. They're
in the
fantastic.
studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's. Do you know that the music business has changed with the internet and downloads, and albums don't seem to be, like putting an album on like Dark Side of the Moon or Sergeant Pepper's or Thriller. People want to hear I mean, some people only listen to 10 seconds of a song and jump onto something else, And I don't want to be negative, but my feeling is, I'd be interested to know what you think about this. When I listen to the Carpenters and these extraordinary, just wonderful production, the depth and the richness, the Bee Gees are another example. The vocal harmonies and the production, and the guys really knew which mic to use, which preamp to use, how to EQ it, how to compress it. Do you think that possibly, as I do, and I think that the formula has been exhausted by these great artists, and there's kind of nothing left to do with the format? I don't know if that's the case. I kind of feel that it is. You listen to the Beatles and you listen to this. There's a richness and a newness and a freshness, and the new bands today. I hate to sound critical or negative, but they just don't. It's like, how many times can you? It wasn't a reproduction. It was new back then. Now there's nothing new about it, and it all just feels like it's tired,
Everything was different
Mm.
in those days, starting with the heads of record companies,
Right.
the Mo Austins, the Joe Smiths, the Clive Davis,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't think the other really big. Oh, sorry. There's
Mm-hmm.
someone trying to call me. Did we get knocked off the air?
No, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay. Ahmet Erdogan.
Sure.
Those heads of record companies signed people because either they were a good writer, a good singer,
Mm-hmm.
had a unique voice, or a combination of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And later, when MTV got to the point to where the most important thing was that you were a certain age and looked great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that these producers could go in with their technology and make a great sounding track for you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's where it all changed.
Yeah.
Um, and then since today, what people are being fed, that's what they sort of become accustomed to. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have nothing against technology and all of that.
Sure.
I like a lot of it.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's just a whole different ball game. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have that record company guy that wants to develop this
Mm-hmm.
great artist that he found.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're looking for something that's I don't even know what's going on with the record companies these days. Tell you the
Yeah.
truth, it's
Yeah.
almost like they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I know, they'll do a $3 million video on a Katy Perry record
Mm-hmm.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the new uh, what's his name, the guitar player. I'm 80 years old now, so I forget names.
You're doing
Uh,
pretty damn good, I tell you.
John, what's his name? The great
Jo-
guitar player singer.
John Mayer?
John, yeah, John Mayer. I
Mm.
like his new record,
Right.
The Last Train. Have you heard that?
Not yet. Not yet. I'll check it
He's,
out.
you know, I hadn't heard much from John in a long time. He's a great guitar player,
Mm.
but I like that new record of his.
Right. Right.
There's been records that there have been artists that come along like Amy Winehouse,
Oh
and you
yeah.
think, oh wow,
Mm-hmm.
we're back in the game again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, we didn't get as much from her as we would have loved to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she was the real deal. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, we get someone like that. But so much more of it is techno and just
Mm.
one guy sitting there with a computer, like I do a lot of times,
Yeah.
creating
Yeah.
backing tracks because there's no record companies giving you 60 or 100 grand to produce someone's record anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless you've somehow hooked up with a big star.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's all different. But I'll tell you, man, there is some talent out there that we
mm-hmm.
find on YouTube.
Yes.
You know, these young guitar players, they're
Yeah.
you know, just phenomenal players.
Yeah. The internet's
me
really. The internet's really lifted the lid, hasn't it? It's like a record company would sign one
Yes.
guy, and but then you would see, with all due respect to somebody like Mark Knopfler, he's great. But he got the
Hmm.
record deal. He got the record deal. He got the backing, and he probably wouldn't have been the only guy playing in the pubs of London of those days that could have done every bit as well.
Yeah, well, that was back when we were still getting record deals
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, definitely.
But hopefully, some of these guys that are so talented I'm pretty sure they're doing okay,
Hmm.
uh, developing their following and going out to play live
Yeah,
whenever we're able to.
yeah.
Uh, with this whole COVID thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they're getting probably uh, monetized YouTube money,
Yeah, yeah,
hopefully,
yeah.
because they're getting plenty of views on it. So some of these great young guitar players.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this is where the ideas that I share. I'm not going to talk about myself, but the ideas that I put on the internet are what I was trying to get a record deal to do 15, 20 years ago. And I couldn't get a
Hmm.
record. I couldn't get a record deal because I wasn't blonde and beautiful. I don't know. But the
I
internet.
thought you were blonde.
Grey. No, but the internet has allowed me to present the music that I wanted to put on records and sell in shops and tour with 20 years ago when I was a kid. So it's priceless. But there's now this huge choice that it's mind-boggling, and as much of a bad press the major record companies got for whatever reason. Some of it was justified, some of it wasn't. Every classic album that ever happened had a major record label behind it, and without those without those major record labels, there doesn't seem to be anything in the way of a classic album happening anymore. You know.
Yeah. Certain people still somehow are hanging on to, I guess, a good record deal like Santana,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But most of the artists from that era have given it up too, you know.
Yeah.
You know, every once in a while you hear a little bit from the Eagles, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that was a great record. That Hotel California, the guitar work on that was
Unbelievable.
what a great extended solo.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
you
envisage
know,
the guys. I envisage the guys sitting in the studio listening back to that the day after they recorded it, and just like thinking that works. It's great, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I do some live shows, some dinner shows, you know,
mm,
where people in restaurants and clubs,
mm,
and I do some of those tunes. You know, I create a backing track to Hotel California,
yeah,
some of those great records.
yeah,
People love it. When
yeah,
you get to that last part where the three harmony guitars are, you know, da da
mm,
da 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 da, people go crazy. You know,
yeah,
they
yeah,
still love that stuff. You know.
yeah. Well, Louis,
Uh,
I was going to say, you know, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but with the band that I work with, we're kind of hoping to be in Australia playing, and
sorry,
that's all right, no problem.
that's my alarm because you're an hour early, Paul.
That's right.
I had my alarm set for 7:45, and and we got together 6:45. So
I
that's okay.
misunder.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, no, you're fine. I googled the
Sorry.
time. I googled the time zone, and it looks like Google got it wrong, not me. Um, but
Okay.
we are hoping to be playing in Australia, and if it hadn't have been for COVID, I think we would have.
Oh,
If we hadn't have been down there, I think we would have had dates confirmed. But that is still
uh-huh.
that's hopefully still in the pipeline. So if we get down there, Louis, it would be great to meet you, and it would be great to play.
Oh, for sure.
Get a bite to eat or whatever.
Oh, for sure. Have
Yeah.
you been here before?
I was in
Mm-hmm.
It's a long story. My uncle lives in Sydney with his my
Uh-huh.
English, and he moved down to Australia from Newcastle, where we are, 50 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, and we went out to see him in 1978, and although I was a kid, I bloody loved it. We were swimming every day. We were body surfing every day. I really, really want to get back
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Sydney's a beautiful city. I lived there for 12 years on
right,
Middle Harbor.
right.
And then I went back to Nashville for 10 and had to
Hmm.
set up a studio there, did some work.
Hmm.
And we ended up coming back to the Gold Coast, which is up closer to Brisbane.
Right. Yes.
We love it here. And
Yeah.
it's been the safest place on the planet for all of this crap that's going on. We
Hmm.
have nothing here,
Right.
none of it.
Yeah.
And they completely closed the state.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The border is closed to even other states. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they really look after it here. But we still wear masks when we go into,
Hmm.
restaurants or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people are being very careful. But yeah, I love Australia's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Sydney got a bit too big for me, like Los Angeles did.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't handle traffic really well.
Right.
Uh, and so, yeah, last time I was in Sydney, it had gotten pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still a beautiful place, but it's too crowded for me.
Yeah. We were
I
in
love the Gold Coast.
we stayed in Bilgola up north of Sydney. Uh,
That was right next to where I lived. I lived in Seaforth. Balgala was the next suburb.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you got like
Yes.
Newport, Avalon, Bilgola.
Yeah.
Fond
And
memories.
Manly is the
That's
great
right.
beach there, right
Yeah.
next to Balgala. Manly
Yeah.
Beach is very famous.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we'll
the North Shore was my favorite part.
yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, Louis. I mean, we've got 70 gigs on hold at the moment, which we're hoping to start
Uh-huh.
resuming in the next couple of months. You know, fingers crossed and everything. Let's hope it happens. So, you know, but Louis, I mean, it's been great to meet you, and it's been great to talk to you, and thank you very much for agreeing to come on my show because, you know, you're a legend. Nobody in the Western world has not heard you play the guitar, and they don't even realize it. You've played on everything, so it's amazing to have you on
Well,
the
those
show.
it's this thing of oldies but goodies
Yeah, right.
is what you hear every time you go out in the whatever.
Yeah.
I'll hear Valerie, I'll hear Clarksville, I'll hear,
Hmm.
you know, uh, just any number of tunes that I played on.
Hmm.
Anytime I go to any shop, I'll hear something
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I played on
yeah,
because the people love the oldies but goodies,
yeah.
you
Damn right they
know.
do. Me included.
And that's making up most of the radio stations these days too,
Yeah.
I find, around here.
Which kind of reinforces what we said earlier about the older music has the substance and the depth that makes you want to go back and hear it again.
Yeah, it has a lasting quality about it.
Yeah, yeah,
That's why they call it classic hits.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
A
Okay.
lot of stuff you got to say, man. Today, I mean, not to be, like you said, not to be negative, but
Hmm.
you'll hear something one week and then the next week it's gone and you never hear it again.
Yeah, yeah,
It just, by nature doesn't have a lasting quality to it.
yeah,
Most of the stuff,
yeah, yeah.
some of it does, but
I,
not a
I,
lot
wo-
of it.
I wonder if it's my feeling is that the formula is exhausted. I mean, that's my feeling on it. It's like what Richard Carpenter and Barry Gibb and Quincy Jones and they kind of rang everything out of it. You know, there's nothing left for to do that's new. That's what I think about it. You know, you put a Beatles record on and instantly you want to stay. You want to listen to the rest. You want to listen to more. And rather, no, that's not interesting and switch it off. You know.
I remember when Elvis came out, and I met Elvis when I was 13 years old. He's played right around in high school there
Mm-hmm.
in Arkansas. And I remember how the older people rebelled against Elvis. Some of them, not all
Yeah.
of them, but there was this thing about, oh, wow. And I often wonder, are we that way with the new music?
Yeah. Right.
Are we
Yeah.
being like the old people were to Elvis? Are we being that way to the new music? But
Yeah.
I swear to God, when I go over the coffee shop and the music that I'm hearing, it is such the same formula with
Mm-hmm.
some meaningless lyric and no chord changes, a drum
Yeah.
beat.
Yeah.
Make sure you got a rapper in there for 8 bars in the middle. And it just seems like it's geared to a certain young audience. And
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing there for mature listeners, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not a lot there for mature listeners. I mean, you got to look for it. You can find it on the internet, but you don't hear it. Like, here was another thing going back to what we want to call the good old days.
Mm.
The top 40 consisted of such a variety of stuff. You could
Yeah.
hear Herb Alpert,
Yes.
then Barbra Streisand, then the Beatles, and then the Police, and then Fleetwood Mac, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
a jazz tune, and George Benson.
Yeah.
Now the radio programs are so fragmented that
Mm-hmm.
it's either all is heavy metal,
Mm-hmm.
all is alternative rock,
Mm-hmm.
or so there's so it's not like you get a variety of anything. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like if you do listen. For me, I swear, I drive 20 minutes to and from my golf course,
Mm.
and I and I remember back in LA, I always listened to my radio to keep abreast of what was going on,
Mm.
production wise,
Yeah.
because I always had ears open for something new by the Beatles or whoever it was. And now I turn it on for 5 minutes and I just turn it off because it's like nails on a blackboard,
Yeah. That's right.
most of the stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just can't find anything. I'll put my own, some, you know, some of my CDs from my collection or something on to
Yeah.
listen for my trip, you know, because the
It's
radio doesn't do it.
it's all advertising and personalities and agenda. There's no artistry in it at all.
Hmm.
You know.
No.
Did you ever just a couple of names I'd run by you just out of interest? Did you ever come across Frank Zappa? Did you ever talk to Frank Zappa?
Yeah, I saw him play. He played at a club right behind my house there. He was down on Santa Monica, a
Right.
club down there, way back in the days.
Right.
But I never did work with him.
Right.
I never
Right.
had a session with Frank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, the drummer, Chad Wackerman's a good friend of mine. Chad was playing with him back in the beginning.
Right.
Chad played on my first album.
Right.
Great drummer. Chad played with Alan Holdsworth for many
That's right.
years
That's right.
too.
That's
You
right.
know, yeah, great drummer. But yeah.
Well, I actually had a track for Chad Wackerman to play on, and I spoke to him on the phone, and Chad was going to play drums for us,
Uh-huh.
and we were going to do a YouTube collaboration, but
Hmm.
I had a backer who dropped out, so I couldn't see the project
Oh,
through.
really?
Yeah, yeah, but oh
Yeah.
well, oh well. Yeah, but brilliant player. Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, a master. To be in Frank's band for 12 years. Terry Bozzio's there for 3 years. Vinnie Colaiuta's there for 3 years. Chad Wackerman's there for 12 years. I mean, that's substantially important to say, isn't it?
And uh, Chad lived down in Sydney for a while, and
Right.
he did a gig there at this jazz club, the Basement, and it
Mm,
had me play guitar with him.
mm,
And of course, Alan Holdsworth played on all of Chad's records.
amazing.
So I'm having to try to learn some of these Alan Holdsworth
These
things.
chords, like
And a
big
lot of the
chords.
times,
Yeah,
it's not easy.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of Chad's stuff had this uh, timings that are not your regular 4/4 things. That's weird time signatures and stuff.
yeah.
But I couldn't get over how comfortable it was with Chad,
Mm, hmm.
even with the weird time signatures. You
Yeah,
always knew where you were at because he just was so in the pocket.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, Alan played more on Chad Wackerman's records than he did on his own almost. He played some great stuff for Chad,
Do you know?
and I was
I beg your
really
pardon.
sorry about. I got to meet Alan Holdsworth a
Hmm.
few times.
Hmm.
If you got time, I'll tell you a funny story.
For sure, for sure.
Uh, I when I was in California before I left to Australia, I had a home studio,
Mm,
and I had done a solo album for Warner Brothers quite a few years, and I decided to do another album.
mm,
And so I had Carlos Vega, who was a friend of mine, come over and play drums,
hmm.
and he brought this bass player, Jimmy Johnson,
Right,
and it was the
right.
first time I had met Jimmy. I said,
Hmm.
"What are you doing?" He
Hmm.
said, "Well, I've been playing with this new guy from England, this Alan Holdsworth." He said
Hmm.
he's got a different approach, and
Hmm.
he doesn't pick every note, and
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's probably boring. Uh, never thought anything else about it,
Hmm.
and so I moved to Sydney, and I set up my studio there, and downtown on Sussex Street, and
Hmm.
across the street is a newsagent.
Hmm.
And on one of my breaks, I went over there and I got Guitar Player magazine
Right,
and brought it back, and it had the little 45 Alan Holdsworth.
right.
And I thought, oh, I'll give it a listen. I put it on, and I swear I had never,
Yeah.
you can't even believe how shocked
Hmm.
I thought it was. You know,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
ran straight out to the record store and bought his two records at the import store. They were very
Right.
expensive.
Right.
And so my next trip to LA,
Mm.
I stopped by Bill Schnee's studio, who's a friend of mine, a producer.
Hmm.
I just barely get in the door and we're talking, and I hear this guitar in the distance, and which I recognized. It
Of
had to be
course.
Alan Holdsworth.
Of course.
I said, "Who
Instantly.
is that?"
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, that's Alan Holdsworth. I'm doing this new Boss Skaggs record, and I got Alan to come in and play on it."
Hmm.
And I thought, that's fantastic. Now everyone's going to hear the greatest guitar player in the world.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the record came out. Well, no, before that, so I said I got to meet Alan. So he took me in there, and I met Alan, the nicest guy in the world.
Hmm.
And he said, "Well, we're playing down in Hollywood tonight. We got the Chick Corea's electric band,
Hmm.
and then we're opening for them."
Right.
It was him and Jimmy Johnson and another drummer. It
Mm.
wasn't Chad. Oh, maybe it might have been Chad. Yeah,
Hmm.
it was. It was
Hmm.
Chad.
Hmm.
Uh, so I got to go down and hear him there,
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
next night they were up in Santa Barbara, which is an hour and a half north,
Yeah.
and I drove up. So I got to see Alan 2 nights in a row.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I get back to Australia, and that Boss Skaggs record comes out, and there wasn't one Alan Holdsworth note on the whole record.
Really.
He had Dan Huff come in
Hmm.
and play guitar on it.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was that album, something Other Roads or something like that.
Right.
And Dan Huff did a great job on it.
Yeah.
I guess Alan uh, is so uncompromising when it comes to his style of playing that
Hmm. Hmm.
I guess he didn't play anything that was commercial enough for the producer,
Yeah.
so it didn't make it on the record. I was disappointed,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
And
but I thought that was interesting.
Eddie Van Halen called Alan Holdsworth the greatest living guitar player on planet Earth. I mean, if Eddie Van Halen can say
Mhm.
something like that, that is pretty. I actually thought Holdsworth played better on the Chad Wackerman records than he did on his solo records, and I think I think Chad kind of maybe went for. I could be wrong. This is guessing. Uh, I think Alan might have overcooked it sometimes, and when he was with Chad, Chad maybe just said, "No, that's it. That's the one we're going to use." So there's like a real raw energy to Holdsworth's playing on the Chad Wackerman records, like the raw edges haven't been polished off. To me, it's the best playing
Yeah,
I've heard him do. You know?
I love that Metal Fatigue album, though.
Yeah.
Alan played some great stuff on that one.
The first solo on the
Um,
first track,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
amazing.
Uh, but Chad said that Alan didn't rehearse anything. He just played, and that's
Right?
what came out on the record.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
figure anything out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, after watching Alan 2 nights in a row, I remember knowing that of all the other guitar players I've seen, including Wes Montgomery and all the great ones,
Hmm.
you you kind of see what they're doing and you know what they're doing, and you
Right.
can go home and emulate it.
Right.
I had to say that I didn't recognize one thing that Alan did. I
That's
didn't
right.
recognize one finger position,
Yeah.
one
I know.
chord shape,
Hmm.
you know.
I know.
Uh,
I know.
so,
Did he?
but I just appreciated it.
Did he tune?
Yeah.
Did he tune EADGBE Alan Holdsworth? Because it's sometimes it's so alien. You think to yourself, is he even tuned in standard
He
tuning?
did. He did use a different tuning on
Yeah.
certain tunes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
all of them, not all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah, definitely. Weird tunings.
I think so
What
much
about
of.
this?
Pardon. Excuse me.
What about this Matteo Mancuso?
y-
Mancuso. Have you heard him?
yeah. Is he the guy who plays
Yeah.
like it looks like a Yamaha SG kind of thing, like a two
It
horn?
is a Yamaha, and
Right.
plays with his fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very good. Very
and
nice. Yeah.
but he's got all of the stuff, and
Hmm.
he can do the Alan Holdsworth stuff really well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, no one can do Alan like Alan, but
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, some of them are getting close.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know how Alan thought. I just don't know how he came up with that stuff because he got to a point where it was so natural for
Hmm.
him.
Hmm.
It just flowed, and such a unique guy, and it passed away at what 70 years old or
Yeah.
71.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I was very saddened to hear that.
I did hear that they had to do like an online fundraiser for his funeral. He was so broke by the end, you know. And
Well,
it's like,
that's the thing. The greatest guitar player in the world, and
mhm,
never made any money. He
yeah,
came to Sydney and played the basement,
hmm,
and I remember hanging out with him. He sat down and wrote on a coaster for me his
hmm,
whole setup,
right,
his whole guitar setup.
mm,
And he came down. He had these boogie speakers and
yeah,
amps, and he had to sell them before he went back because he couldn't pay the overweight on the plane to go take it back. So he sold the stuff in Sydney,
yeah, yeah,
and I always knew that he was struggling financially,
yeah,
uh, which I don't quite understand it because at least at the end he was so well known because of the internet and YouTube, and he
hmm,
did go to Japan and places and play,
hmm,
but yeah, it was sad that the best one of the greatest players of all time
yeah, yeah.
financially, was struggling.
When the last time I saw him, he played in Newcastle, and I talked to him two or three times at different gigs, just passing. And Chad was playing drums, and we carried his gear out of the gig into the van for him, you know. And I said,
Hmm.
if you know, and Chad Wackerman's there carrying his own drums up the stairs into the and chucking
Uh-huh.
them into the back of the van. And I said, Alan, have you not got a
Hmm.
roadie? And he says, we can't afford it. Can't afford a roadie.
Oh no. Mm-mm.
Unreal, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So we helped him
it
with his
is.
gear, you know.
Uh-huh.
I think I carried his
Yeah.
guitar up the stairs for him on my back. I carried a cabinet. It's
And
extraordinary.
he used to carry. He had like that when I first saw him. He had that synth
Yeah,
and an Oberheim keyboard
yeah,
and a couple of different amps
hmm,
and all that. So he had a lot of gear to carry around.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, his guitar, synth and all of the things that go with that.
hmm, hmm,
So flying around is not cheap, man, with the excess baggage.
yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's not cheap.
And
Uh,
when you're as specialised as Holsworth, you can't rent gear. You can't rent the gear that you need to be Alan Holsworth, can you? It's like it has to
no,
be
no,
the specific thing, you know.
yes, yes, no compromise with Alan,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. And did you ever come across Eddie Van Halen? Did you ever encounter Eddie?
All of those years in LA, and we probably lived close together. I
Hmm.
never did.
Right.
I never did come across Eddie, and boy, I'm a big fan of his.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
you know, I always thought, aside from his hammer-ons and stuff, which I never, I used, I always tried to learn from other guys, but
hmm,
I didn't jump onto that because it was almost like starting all over.
right, right,
The way he did that stuff.
hmm,
But aside from that, his tone and playing
yeah,
uh, was just great.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Even without the hammer-on stuff, he was
yeah.
a great player.
And another innovator with gear and amps and chopping guitars in half and sticking them back together and all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the original guy, isn't it? The unique player.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I saw an interview with Clapton, and he said that when he first met Hendrix, he says, Hendrix took this Strat, and he said he turned it upside down. And he said before Hendrix even played, seeing the guitar upside down, kind of like, whoa, it was like to see the guitar the wrong way around. He says, and then he played, and it was like, Jesus, So it's all part of this unique stuff that I don't know. Maybe it's a bygone age, but it's priceless.
Yeah. Every once in a while, someone with just such a unique character in their lifestyle and their approach to guitar. I saw Hendrix play at the Hollywood Bowl.
Right.
And I was amazed at, aside from his fancy stuff, how much real blues he played throughout the show.
Yeah.
A real player. He was a real player, as well as a great showman.
And his rhythm playing and his chords and his groove was second to none.
Yeah. He had it all. He had the whole thing,
Yeah.
The personality, the energy, his unique approach to songs and sounds and
yeah. Well, Louie,
he was one of a kind.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for an hour, so I think if
I've got some chicken in there thawing out, man. I got to get in there and get it on the stove.
Get your chicken in. Are you going to be going to the NARM show, Louie, or do you think the NARM show is going to happen, or do you not bother going? It's a long flight over there. Do you still go out there?
I can't even go over there at this time.
Right.
I can't plan on going over there until. They're not allowing international flights here, so.
Right, of course, yes, Australia. I beg your pardon. Yes.
I can't make any plans. I had gigs lined up.
Yeah.
And a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here now waiting for things to. And I may be sitting here for another year at this point, So I'm just spending a lot of time in studio and doing things, doing sessions for other people, and. Working on a new album myself, and I'm doing some shows locally.
Great.
But I can't even go down to Sydney to do a show, or Melbourne right now.
Yes.
And I don't know how long it'll be before I'm able to do that.
Yeah, I know.
So we're just biding our time.
Yeah.
But we're happy, Got the studio, got my golf. Yeah. We're in a nice place, so
yeah.
We're enjoying life, considering that. We're not able to travel.
Yeah.
But I do. I go over there a few times a year normally. But I was traveling all over the world before this thing happened.
Sure. Yeah.
And so so now we're just holding tight till it blows over or whatever happens to it. And, I've been wanting to get back over there. I haven't been over there since I did the Garfunkel album. We did that at Air Studio there in London. And
yes,
I probably spent 3 months there in London. Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic.
And I'd love to get back over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that part. Yeah. I know that part of town where Air Studios is very well. I lived just a mile or two down the road for several years, so I know Hampstead very well. I'm hoping to be playing in Hampstead next month, fingers crossed, right up at the top of the hill there, But Louie, if you're here, be sure to let me know, if you come to the UK.
Oh, I will for sure. Oh, we'll be in touch.
Yeah,
we'll be in touch for sure.
Okay, Louie, let's call it a day. What I'll do is I'll end the stream, but this connection between you and I will remain. So I'll just say it to everybody. So I'll say cheerio after we end the stream, kind of thing. So, okay, everybody, I hope you've all enjoyed that conversation with Louie Shelton. Louie, thank you very much.